This is Bad Movies We Love, part of the Shice Podcast Network.
Hello, Bad Movie Lovers, and welcome back to another episode of Bad Movies We Love. Of course, as you know, I am your host, Nick Scheist.
The master of this stupid stuff!
And as is the custom around here,
if you're listening to this, you are the Resistance.
So thank you for being here because I couldn't and wouldn't do this without you. And the Resistance is continuing to grow thanks to members like Ben and Sean, who generously contribute monthly, and of course to listeners like Michael, who go out of their way to share the show on social media. I really appreciate all of the help that you've given me, and I'm looking forward to making this a better show for all of you. And now, Jean-Claude Van Damme is in the rear view, but if you were listening along, you will have learned that Dolph Lundgren is a huge part of my Jean-Claude fandom. So much so that later in the year, I'm gonna do an entire month on just Dolph Lundgren movies. But as a little preview, I feel like the only fitting transition from Jean-Claude into our slate of epic adventure films for July is Gary Goddard's early Lundgren vehicle from 1987. It can only be Masters of the Universe. Hey man, welcome back to the show. Thanks for being here.
Wait, what?
What do you mean, what?
Shouldn't I be the one saying that?
Well, why's that?
Aren't you here to talk about Masters of the Universe?
Yeah, Dolph Lundgren, baby.
Okay, that's what I thought. I was just getting confused there for a minute. So, why isn't Nick giving us silly names? Where's Connie? T-Bob? Where is everyone?
Oh, no, this is for my show, Bad Movies We Love.
Wait, you're doing Masters of the Universe?
Yeah, I'm just waiting on Newman to get here.
But are you sure?
Well, now I'm confused. Let me message Newman. What the fuck is that?
Ben!
So, we are doing this shit show.
No! I mean, well, yes! Okay, hold on. That's why I'm here. Look, we fucked it all up. I just talked to Newman. He's supposed to be doing Nick's show. Ben, you need to come do the Nick's show with me and the special guest.
But this is Nick's show.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
I have no idea what's going on.
Just gonna be on our way. Right, Ben?
Okay. Sounds good.
I have the power!
You will no longer stand between me and my destiny.
All right, a little nervous about how you said that, but Newman's on his way. I'm sure he can deal with it. Love you, Nick. Bye. Nick, bye.
Well, around here, we don't say goodbye. We say good journey.
Very muscle bound. We're showing lots of skin, lots of hair, big swords.
This movie is a lot of fun.
Because it's not just a sword and sorcery vibe, it's slamming up against a Star Wars vibe.
It's a lot of sword swinging and laser guns.
Because that's what I think this movie has in bucket loads, is just charm.
Dolph Lundgren's amazing, and he should have a much brighter star than he ended up having.
It's the power of time travel, dimension hopping, and saving your parents from a plane crash.
Colorful and goofy and wacky.
Fucking Gwilda shows up with big, silly sunglasses and like a Hawaiian skirt and a pink Cadillac.
He physically just lifted another man onto his shoulders and threw him across the room.
The universe is music, Kevin.
Newman, welcome back to the show, buddy. It's good to see you.
Greetings and salutations. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, thanks for being here. I mean, it's been a while. What was the last thing we did? Did we do Swamp Thing last, or did we do Copland most recently for your show?
You know, the last thing we did was Idle Hands for your show.
Oh, that's right. Look at that. We've worked together so many times now. I get it all mixed up.
Well, because, you know, every time I walk away, I know I'm coming back, so I don't say goodbye. I say good journey.
Oh, that's so on brand, because we're talking about Masters of the Universe today. And this is a movie that was on my wish list that I put out, but you did not know that when you brought Masters of the Universe to my attention. So, you know, why are we talking about Masters of the Universe today?
So this is very auspicious because I've been on your show a couple of times, and it's, you know, and I love bad movies we love. It has a very personal connotation, because who says what is bad? And who says we cannot love things that we agree are objectively bad? But even then, how do you say what is objectively bad, especially where movies are concerned? When I first came to do Return of Swamp Thing, that was a movie that you would say is bad. However, it's so fun and it's so obvious what it is on the tin. And when you consider its goals and budgets, it's not, in my opinion, bad. It's successful. And then we had Idle Hands. And Idle Hands is a movie that I also don't really grant as bad. It just came out at the wrong time, because it's a really, really well-made horror comedy. It just came out at a time when people didn't know they wanted that again. However, sir, here we are with Masters of the Universe, and I must admit, this is a bad movie. This movie is not good, but it is in fact a movie I love. Like Bender says, he doesn't just love himself, he loves things that remind him of himself. Well, like me, this movie came out in 1987. I didn't see it in theaters, and I didn't grow up loving He-Man. My older brother really liked He-Man, and so the cartoons and especially the action figures were just prevalent throughout the house. So I kind of grew up with He-Man just kind of existing. And we had this movie on video, and I'm not positive, but certainly the way my brain has rewritten history, it was not a video that we bought. It was a blank tape. Nick, have you ever explained to your young audiences about VHS tapes and how you used to be able to record things off TV?
No, because I just assumed that the people that listen to the show are old like us and had to go through similar growing pains. But yes, for anybody who did not grow up with VHS, you were able to take a blank one, put it in the VCR, and then record a movie that was playing on television onto the VHS. I mean, you could record anything that was playing on TV onto the VHS, and then you play it back and wear it out just like you would with any other VHS tape. But that was sort of, you know, when we had either rented a movie that was now too expensive to buy or just difficult to find, or we knew that, hey, Saturdays they like to play a certain type of movie, and we're just going to record those because we know that we're going to get stuff that's of a similar ilk.
And if you were really hardcore about it, you would intently wait for the commercial and you would pause it so that later when you watched the movie back, there were no commercials. However, if you were a little more loosey-goosey about it, then we got commercials from years ago that never went away, that stayed on that recorded copy of Back to the Future or Teen Wolf, or yes, Masters of the Universe. And then you'd either watch them and go, holy shit, remember that Little Caesars commercial with the airplane? Or you would fast forward through them and go, man, it's weird, we're fast forwarding through commercials. And that was, I'm pretty sure, how I had this movie. I'm pretty sure we had taped it off television and I watched it over and over again as a little guy. I cannot explain why exactly. Something about the, you know, I was raised on Star Wars and things like that. Ghostbusters, and so you had these fantasy elements, but also Labyrinth and the Muppets, and so you had Billy Bardy doing his Gwildor thing. You know, you had fucking James Tolkin from Back to the Future again with his bald head and his bad attitude, and I just loved everything he did. And Frank Langella as fucking Skeletor, like it was operatic, it was insane. And Evil Lynn, Meg Foster, there was this weird, dangerous, sexy thing happening there that as a child I was like, I'm leaning forward and I'm not quite sure why. it was certainly something that was designed to work on children, and I was a child when I saw it. I saw it over and over again. So I still have all this affection for this movie that it took you 3 times to get me here. But yes, I will admit on this one, bad. This ain't a good movie.
Well, I think similar to you, I grew up with like He-Man in the periphery. I knew about the cartoon. I know I had friends that liked He-Man. Like they played with He-Man toys. And, I was 3 when this movie came out. So it's not something that I went to theaters for. It's something that I caught on cable much, much later. And I mean, I was still young, but I wasn't watching it as a child. I don't recall. But I did have like the light up He-Man like power sword that made noise when you like bashed it into things. So I did still play with toys and like recognize the character, but it wasn't something where, yeah, I didn't read the comics, I didn't watch the cartoon, so I didn't have that sort of tangible attachment to it in the way that a lot of other people would have. People that were maybe 10 to 14, because I think the cartoon started in 81. This is 87. So, yeah, people probably between like 10 and 15 years old were the sweet spot target for this. And I mean, it ended up being a PG movie to have as much palatability and sell as many toys as possible, because that's what really Mattel was doing here. But I hadn't seen this in 20 something years at least. And so, like, all these sort of like weird, vague brushstrokes of the movie existed in my mind. And I'm like, okay, I know that this is kind of going to happen and they're going to end up in a storefront somewhere. And there's like a weird creature and Dolph Lundgren is in this. And so I got to watch it almost with like basically fresh eyes. And I can see its struggles. And I can see where it just like almost blatantly just ripped off other movies in order to capitalize on those audiences as well. But this movie is a lot of fun, colorful and goofy and wacky. Like, I can see, like, yes, it's maybe not a good movie in the sense that, like, yeah, there's a lot of budgetary restrictions, although it was the most expensive film that Canon made. So it's not like they cheaped out. They were behind their production schedule. Like, Dolph Lundgren didn't really speak English in this movie. The canon was like, well, you can only build like half sets and then you got to paint the rest. So like there's a lot of those trappings of a movie that like I think could be a lot worse if it wasn't so much fun. Like if you watch this and it's like, oh, this is just dumb, it falls apart. But I think the spirit of it elevates it enough for me where I had a really good time with it.
That's why it's a bad movie I love and not a bad movie I hate. It's big, it's operatic, its design elements and use of like matte paintings and rotoscope is so goddamn charming to me. Billy Bardy will always be entertaining because I grew up loving Willow, and I really love him on Willow because he's like the wise sorcerer of the Nelwyn village. And just everything Billy Bardy does in this movie's obsession with fried chicken. What? And Court Cox and the dude who's going to play Tom Paris on Star Trek Voyager are here, and and he's in a band. He's a music nerd in a band, of course. Like it's so many things about this are just delightful. I love the score by Bill Conti. I think it's a delight. I think it's so much fun, and just everything Frank Langella does. Everything he does, everything about Skeletor, and really everything in that throne room. I think that set is immaculately designed. But, it's like this thing, you spend 17 minutes of the opening going, hot damn, we're in some, there's a budget, but still, it looks very good. It's very fleshed out and realized we're in this sword and sorcery kind of place.
Yeah.
And it's fucking He-Man, and you're not going to look at Dolph Lundgren in his costume and his mightiness and say, that's not He-Man, because, it is. And the amazing facial prosthetics and makeup that they're giving to Frank Langella for Skeletor, it looks all fantastic. And then, wham, we are in BFE fucking California suburb, whatever. And we're at the music store and the high school. And we are just, okay, we're going to be here for a long bit. Enjoy.
Yeah. Though, like, as I have recently like watched Conan and I recently watched Hawk the Slayer and sort of like reminiscing on the sword and sorcery genre, um, seeing this movie, like, I get that it had to stick within the 80s because the budget would not allow them to build Eternia. So they couldn't like make the whole story take place there. But I think in a way, like, it separates itself from the rest of the movies of its genre by actually coming to what was modern times and like having to exist in this world where He-Man busts in with his like shoulder pads and cape and his nipples sticking out, and he's like dual wielding a sword and a gun, and they just have to like be in 1980s California, and it gives it like a very surreal tone that, when you look at the other sword and sorcery movies, they are surreal in their own way, but they're surreal within the confines of a reality that's already understood to be not real. So by connecting the dots here and having like this portal open up and bringing these like cartoonish larger than life characters into the 80s, it makes it special in a way that I feel that the other ones just don't quite achieve. It doesn't necessarily make it better, but it gives it something unique that those other movies don't have.
Unique is definitely the word. I agree, because it's not
Yeah.
just a sword and sorcery vibe, it's slamming up against a Star Wars vibe,
Hmm.
which itself is already a genre fusion and reimagining. So, like, you've got all these elements that were very current that can and do technically exist within the world of He-Man Skeletor Eternia, and they just went for it. I love Karg, the dude with like the white hair and the weird melty face.
Is he a
Love that
snake?
motherfucker. I don't know. He's got his black outfit and his fabulous boots. Like, I love that whole, what are they? The Curious Quartet. It's like
Yes.
fucking dodgeball, you know? Blade, laser, blazer. And it's just so operatic and fun. And the costumes and the props and the production design, like the Cosmic Key, it's one of the most fun, inventive, enjoyable MacGuffins ever. And I'm not a music nerd the way I'm a movie nerd,
Mhm.
but I appreciate things like that. I appreciate the shit out of music and how powerful it is. And I think it's pretty freaking awesome when this whole notion, this underlying theme that music is magic. The universe is music, Kevin. I love
Yeah.
that shit.
Yeah, and I mean, it takes a guy who is like self-deprecating and doesn't have a lot of confidence in the sense that he like doesn't really believe that he's sort of like good enough for the love interest. He envisions himself as sort of a band nerd as well, but it's his ability to pick up on the tone and essentially save the day. He becomes the most important character in the story at that point in time. So it's nice to get like the nerd sort of over the hump in that way. And yeah, this movie's just, it's a lot of fun. The practical set dressing is, I think, one of the strongest elements of it. And like, I would be happy and have, in fact, recently just recommended this movie to our friend Sean. He said that it was like kind of on his list, and I was just like, just do it, man. It's fun. And, Donald was very interested in getting his wife on board to do a rewatch. And I was like, what? She doesn't like big, goofy, colorful, silly things. And so like I'm 100% behind this movie, and I'm really happy to be able to get a chance to jump from June Claude Van Damme into a Dolph Lundgren film because yeah, the through line, as much as it surprised me from doing this month of Van Damme movies, was that like I think Dolph Lundgren's amazing and he should have a much brighter star than he ended up having. And it's crazy that like this was not a movie that he was really happy with either, but you know what? It showcased what he can bring to the table. And if that was only being tall and blonde and physical, it got him enough because Rocky 4 was also in 87, I think, or was that 85? So like right around the same time, regardless. But it really showcases like his sort of like imposing physical presence on camera. And I think he offers a lot more than that, and I'm really interested to like dive into more of his movies now and check out like where he went in his career when it wasn't playing second fiddle to the hero.
There's a lot behind the eyes with Lundgren, and this is definitely an early performance for him. But in addition to looking the part, and my goodness, that's not easy. I think just physically, the man is an Adonis, and that takes work unto itself. There is a lot of charm there. I think it's charm that still needs to be honed for a guy who's going to be, like a movie star. But it's there, and it's a part of what makes this work because everybody gives really great performances. Frank Langella, of course, is the king of the bunch. But everybody's giving really great performances in this because it's all so much larger than life. And it's part of what amps up the charm, because that's what I think this movie has in bucket loads is just charm. And that's part of why it's so fun.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there, and I can't say it any better myself. I think the PG element helps it in the sense that while it's taking itself seriously, it's not taking itself too seriously, but it is still being earnest in its messaging. And it's like it's a hard balance to find all of those things to have them level out and have the project work. But this is a movie that a lot of people like, despite it being a bad movie. And we're going to look at the scores here because IMDb has it at a 5.4. Metascore has a 35. Rotten Tomatoes critic scores a 21. Audience score 41. Letterboxd 2.5, which gives us a Bad Movies We Love total score of a 40.2 out of 100. So I think that's squarely within the realm of what we would call bad movies. It's more than welcome on this show, though. But how do you feel about taking a stab at that synopsis haiku to let people who haven't seen Masters of the Universe get a peek behind the curtain?
Let's do it. Okay. Skeletor will rule unless the heroes fight him. I have the power. I've got a couple of alternate final lines that I liked, but I like the one I just gave you the most. But we could have also ended with, also there's chicken. We could have also ended with crush on evil Lynn, because yes, I had one. Actually, I also had a crush on Tila because Tila was so cool and she had a great, like she was cool under pressure. And that moment where the speaker was doing the music and Kevin couldn't focus and he was like, God, I wish that would shut up. And she just pulls out her gun and fucking blasts the speaker and then smiles at him and he goes, thanks. That was such a moment for me as a little guy being like, I want to marry a girl like that one day. Like, yeah, dude, it was, I never forgot that moment. So yeah, Tila forever, Evil Lynn. I don't know. I was turned on, but I was too young to understand that I was turned on. So I was a little scared and I didn't quite understand what was happening, but I never forgot it. Meg Foster forever, baby.
Hey, look, she's intense, but it's like she's got very unique eyes and it's a little hypnotic. And I think her presence in the film, while not sexualized, is still very charismatic without her like being over the top in the way that a lot of other characters are. And maybe that's why she stands out, because she seems very reserved, maybe in comparison to a lot of the other performances in this movie. And so it's like a less is more situation where she's like, nope, like this is gonna work. Like Frank is gonna be Skeletor. I'm opposite He-Man here in his undies. So let me just like dial it back and play this character a little more straight. And I think that's something that worked about it. But yeah, she's something, all right.
She's very entrancing,
Yeah.
especially in the, when she kind of has to get information from people or trick people into giving things over, like when she does the Spaceballs switcheroo. And but Meg Foster is an absolute icon in the horror community. If anybody who saw her performance in Stepfather 2,
oh yeah,
forget about it. And I'm dead serious.
Yeah, and she was in They Live as well. So, a lot of sort of high profile horror roles in sort of like B movie horror, I guess. I mean, I think Stepfather would sort of count in that genre.
Well, and that's something I wanted to ask you. Is this Masters of the Universe? Is this like top tier B movie? Because that's kind of how I felt while I was watching it, that like this is the absolute creme de la creme of B movies while still being a B movie. But I also sort of wanted to ask, am I overstepping right now? Would this not really qualify as a B movie?
No, I think it would, because for me, at least, the way I look at B movies is they're like movies where they're filling an already like existing niche. So this movie knows that, hey, we're gonna play up the Star Wars element. We're like, I mean, the whole opening is like basically the Superman opening credits. The music sounds very much like Superman, which I'm not upset with because that's an amazing score. But I'm like, it's definitely meant to evoke those feelings and get you on board. Like, if you like Superman, if you like Star Wars, you're gonna like this movie. And I mean, canon films, like their bread and butter was B movies, so I'm not really like opposed to categorizing it that way based on the production staff. They did spend a lot of money on it, but for me, it was always typically like a B movie is like a mid budget kind of movie that was never really designed to be super successful. Like, it was meant to appeal to a smaller portion of the audience and just make its money back. And typically, a lot of these B movies are like financial failures as well. And this movie ended up not making its budget back at the box office. So I think it's fair to say that, at least the way I envision B movies, this is definitely one of them. But this is the most expensive canon movie ever, and $22 million is still not cheap. So they didn't like cheap out and cut corners in trying to make this movie. They went all in to make a good B movie, and I appreciate that.
When you dig into the behind the scenes machinations of how this film came about, however, it makes for such compelling companion viewing, you know, like the same way that you can watch Troll 2, but it's even better if you watch Troll 2 and World's Worst Movie, or whatever that movie is called, where it's the documentary all about Troll 2. Because the making of Masters of the Universe was completely batshit insane. You know, Mattel put up half the budget up front, and then Canon said, yeah, we'll put up the other half the budget. But after they'd burned through Mattel's money, they just said, hey, Mattel, can we get a little more money? And Mattel themselves were losing all this money on He-Man at the time. Just coincidentally, He-Man sales just were tanking as far as their toys were concerned. So at the beginning of the process, they were telling them, hey, we got a long list of do's and don'ts for He-Man. You know, we care a lot about him. If you're going to make the movie, he can't kill anybody. He can't do this, can't do that. And they were working under those constraints. But as the production went on, and Mattel was both losing money on He-Man and pumping more money than they ever agreed to in the first place into this movie, hoping it would succeed, they keep going, fuck it, never mind, do whatever you want, make a good movie, just make this not suck, we don't care. Do we need to get some strippers in there? Do we need to get some tie-dye silly string? We don't care. Anything, literally anything.
Yeah.
So like it was completely chaos behind the scenes, and it's not 100% accurate to say that in the same way New Line Cinema, the house that Freddy built,
right?
You could also say Canon, the house that He-Man killed.
Yeah, you know, Canon was going through financial troubles of their own around this time as well.
That's what I'm saying. It's not 100% accurate because it was a little while before they closed up shop for real. And like they did have some other big flops that were happening at the exact same time, and they were already in so much trouble. But it did strike me when I started working on this. I was like, oh fuck, is Canon the house that He-Man killed? Because man, that sounds good.
Yeah,
but
I mean, it may
not 1,000,000% accurate.
I don't think that He-Man he may have dealt the death blow, like, and it was just a slow bleed out kind of process after this, because this was really highly priced for them, and they didn't recover, and I think closed up in 89 or 90, so it wasn't too long after this movie that they shut their doors. But I also see the logo at the beginning of the movie, and I'm like, wow, so many of my films, like, from my childhood were Canon films, and I miss seeing that logo because I knew, even if it was bad, like, I'm about to have a good time watching whatever this is.
And they had planned to do a sequel and they had to scrap those plans, but they had already built some sets. Do you know what those sets ended up getting used for?
Oh yeah, it was Cyborg.
Yeah, it was. Your boy's in that movie, right?
That's right. And I was fortunate enough to record a bonus episode on Cyborg. And that too is like just like a silly, wild mashup of ideas in that it's kind of like a sword and sorcery adventure movie, but it's also set in the future. And it kind of had, I was like, are these guys pirates? I'm like, oh yeah, they're officially pirates. Okay, so it's a pirate movie now. So it's a little bit of like a swashbuckling action adventure film. So there's so many different, like, I think like tonal identities that exist within the movie that sort of cause Cyborg its own problems, but that'll be a bonus episode that goes, I think, into the paid tier of the show because I just ran out of time and Jean-Claude Van Damme. There's too many good movies, or maybe I just save it for next year and do it all over again.
I was gonna say, when you have a wealth of jewels to reach from, you might as well, dip back into that treasure pool and again next year. Because that's the thing about this movie is that it is a PG and that gives it a bit more accessibility. But the thing of it is that it's a very wide net of accessibility because this is PG in 1987. We've still got blood, shotguns.
Yeah.
We've got a beast man. We have a beast man who does not look like he came to fuck around. We've got a laser whip. We've got slavery, indentured servitude. We've got the weird bald principal from Back to the Future staying behind in some weird Stargate-esque thing where he's like, "Yeah, check it out. I got a lady. I'm sticking around. I just got here, but I got a lady." They're scared of my shotgun. They're making me their king. It's awesome. This is PG. Okay. You got your truth collar, which is just so unsettling. It's great because that's like bringing in weird Star Trek elements too, fucking Wrath of Khan with the little earworms crawling in.
Yeah.
Screwing with their brains. Yeah, this is 87. PG can go pretty hard. I'm pretty sure Lupic actually has a line where he's like, "Holy shit, I think I'm gonna need some backup." Backup? Motherfucker, there's a dimensional rift that has just split across Main Street and, intergalactic soldiers are coming down the street and you couldn't handle it with your little shotgun. Yeah, I think you need some backup. But it's hysterical because like in it's fucking Simpsons or Scooby-Doo or some shit, by the time backup arrives, they've all gone. And it's like, oh yeah, Lupic, were you drinking again? It's like, well, yes, I was drinking, but no, I didn't hallucinate this, I swear.
Yeah, it's like, in a different movie, you would probably get the detective as like a larger role, but he's like comic relief. Even though he's got this like hard on for the kids that like I gotta arrest you guys so bad, like I'm gonna make you pay. It's like there's an alien invasion happening. Like, why do you care so much about like us? Like, it's not that big of a deal, but he can't let it go, and he ends up getting sucked into the portal with them. So hey, he gets to live his best life in Eternia after that. So good for him.
Yeah. He finally gets to shoot some fuckers. Like, that's all he wanted. He just wanted to be able to shoot some people. And once he was like, oh, I can do that. All right, let's do the thing. And yeah, there's that part where the whole music store has been trashed and it's on fire. Multiple things are on fire. And he tells the guy behind the counter, "You stay right there. I'm going after these guys." And I'm in my like, no, don't stay right there. The building is on fire. Walk out the front door with him. Are you kidding me? Stay right there. What is this? But I don't care because it's James Tolkin. I love him. He's the one who told Tom Cruise and Anthony Edwards that they have to get sent to Top Gun. I fucking love this actor. I'll watch him do anything.
Yeah, he's great. He's been in so many things. Like, as soon as I saw him, I immediately looked him up because I just instantly like had so many flashes of so many different roles in my head. And you had already mentioned Back to the Future, but he's in War Games as well. You said obviously Top Gun. He's in one of your favorite movies, Bone Tomahawk, and that's a lot more recent.
Bone Tomahawk. Oh God, what a great film! I totally forgot he was in that.
Yeah. So really awesome to see him, and he always brings like a certain sort of like frantic, manic energy to the character that I love. So this is a good role for him. It could have been interesting to see him do more, but like this is a pretty robust cast as it is. So not everybody's going to have, full developmental character arcs in a story like this. And I mean, it is made for kids who are going to buy He-Man toys. So, most people are not watching this in 1987 being like, wow, I really needed more of this cop's backstory and why he's such a dick.
He's got a whole backstory about music. He doesn't like Kevin because he's a musician, because he always wanted to play music, but he was no good at it. And they made him feel stupid for trying, and that's why he became a cop. See, I got this whole thing mapped out.
Yeah.
But they couldn't do the sequel or the prequel because financial failure. What are you going to do?
Yeah, there's no time for the flashback for the cop.
Yeah, no, this movie is it's so silly, but it has all these very memorable moments. And I think that's why it struck such a chord with me as a young person, because it's a very well executed adventure, MacGuffin, kind of fantasy thing. I was into this sort of stuff. I mean, this is Willow all over, but Willow is more consistent and less. I mean, when I say less goofy, you know what I mean. I mean, Willow is goofy, but it's not goofy in the way this movie is goofy. I mean, fucking Willow shows up with like big silly sunglasses and like a Hawaiian skirt and a pink Cadillac and just, I mean, whatever. It's great. It's great. And that's the thing, because I had no relationship to He-Man before this.
Yeah.
I didn't care that there were all these like new characters or replacement characters or characters that got left out, or these redesigns on all the characters. Like when you dig into the research, like behind the scenes about the movie, you see all the changes they made. And I guess some people were put off by that because they were already so invested in He-Man as it existed. But this was the He-Man that taught me what He-Man was. So, and I just watched it over and over as a little guy. So it felt in that same vibe as a Willow or a Labyrinth. And I mean, God, those movies are my shit. I mean, I still watch those movies today and they get me emotional, and, I'm super invested in those movies. But this one is just so all over the place. It's batting in that same area, but it's like that weird cousin who always has mismatched, ill-fitting clothes at the reunion, hair half dyed, and everybody just kind of goes, so, how they doing? And it's good. We love that. We love Cousin Earl. We fucking love that guy. But that's Masters of the Universe. You know what I'm saying? He's overdoing it on the deviled eggs every time.
Yeah, I think that's very apropos. All right, well, I think we've covered some pretty good ground so far. So let's go back in time. Let's take a look at this trailer, and we'll see who this movie was really marketed towards when it was coming out in '87.
Before we get to the trailer, it's time for a quick word from today's sponsor. With utility companies constantly raising their rates, energy independence is more important than ever, especially with sweltering heat waves forcing us to run the AC all day long. Thanks to Cosmic Key Solar, you can break the chains and live off the grid in full confidence. Unlike other solar panels, Cosmic Key Solar doesn't just harness ultraviolet light, it absorbs every wavelength of light on the spectrum and even collects energy from particle showers caused when a cosmic ray passes through the atmosphere. So now you can rest assured that you'll have stored electricity day, night, or cloudy days with no sunlight. Call Cosmic Key Solar today, and you won't just be saying,
I have the power!
You'll be living it. Cosmic Key Solar Energy, electric independence for you and for we. And now, back to the show.
Let's pull that up. All right, you see, well, you can't see anything because it's a black screen, but give it a second. Oh my god.
At the far end of the universe,
Loud.
there is a planet ruled by a being of utter evil.
Didn't even get like the normal trailer guy. This is like
And there is
trailer
only
guy
one
in
man
training.
who dares challenge him.
He's B-movie trailer guy.
They are locked in a battle to the death. A battle that will
Oh,
take
the
them
ending,
across the
God.
universe.
Stop him!
A battle that will finally be fought
I want them hunted down and brought to me!
across the
Oh,
face
lasers and portals.
Police! Nobody move!
of Earth.
And shotguns, oh my.
Explosions.
I think I'm gonna need some backup.
We got some good explosions.
Yeah.
We got some great fire in this. Some great fire.
Blade.
Watch out for Blade. He's got multiple blades. And an eye patch.
I think even his like earring was knives, or like his headgear.
Oh my god! Yeah, and the part where He-Man flies upside down.
From a distant galaxy.
Oh,
He
silly.
forgot to put his feet in the holsters, but it still
Dolph
worked out.
Lundgren as He-Man. Frank Langella as Skeletor. Only they have the powers to be masters of the universe. Live the adventure.
And I love that score. That theme is great.
Yeah, I mean, it really conveys the adventuring spirit. It sounds big.
Live
it
the
sounds
adventure.
epic. Yeah.
Live the adventure, Nick. Good journey.
Good
And
journey to
chicken.
you, sir.
Also chicken.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you come from another dimension and you're gonna get down with some fried chicken, you're probably gonna really enjoy it. They all seem like what was it, Man at Arms? He was really into eating animals. Is that something that doesn't happen in Eternia? I'm not familiar.
I couldn't tell you, but Tila certainly wasn't familiar with this. But Man at Arms seemed like he was an old hand at eating flesh. So I am so curious about his war record now. Did they get caught somewhere where they had to cook and eat the flesh of their enemies? And that's why he's okay with this. No clue, but it's fine. It's a bit of dad-daughter clash comedy, and how wholesome and fun that is. I love the grappling hook that they use with the little suction cups on it. It's so adorable. It's so fucking adorable. Like just the tech and the design of all the props and everything. Yeah, again, charm. I keep coming back to it.
Yeah, I mean the set design, even though it had to be used sparingly, is really fantastic. I mean the throne room is excellent. And I was reading about like the identity that went into crafting that, and this notion that like the power of Grayskull, when used for good, has these monuments, and you see He-Man push over one of these statues later in the film, and then like on the underside of the bridge, it's like these dark evil beings that use that power for evil. So like even the thought process that goes into something like that, for when you're making a movie that is basically marketed at kids, I think there's a lot of thoughtfulness that went into the design, and I think that trickles down into the costumes. I mean, Dolph Lundgren doesn't have much of a costume here. He's got shoulder pads and a cape, and oh my god, reading about him, he wanted to wear kickboxing boots, is what I read, that the kickboxing boots that he insisted on, the director came out and said, "Oh yeah, those look good, but they're very effeminate." And they've made it. And so Lundgren was like, "Okay, I'm not cool with that anymore. Give me the thigh high boots because that's less effeminate." So like
that's all he needed to hear.
Yeah, right. So like he was obviously very attached to the idea of like masculinity for a character called He-Man, but like he's close to wearing like almost bondage type of gear with like the big leathery X across his chest. So he's not a character that comes across as like sexualized really, but he is scantily clad the entire time. You don't go out and get just some average Joe. Like you get a guy like Dolph Lundgren who's jacked and can pull this off. So you definitely cast him for like the physique, and then the struggles with him and his English at the time were really interesting to read about, because I guess he was initially not going to do the voice work. They were going to ADR all of it out. And they were so far behind schedule that by the time that it was like, okay, well, now we need to make a decision, it's like, well, we're just going to use his voice. And it's like, he honestly doesn't speak that much. And I never thought to myself during the movie, it's like, oh, wow, he sounds so Swedish, So the decision to even consider that is a little bit weird, but Dolph has sort of like a quiet energy to him. Like, I mean, we see it a lot better in something like Rocky or in Universal Soldier, where he's very measured for a lot of it. But then when it's like he needs to ratchet it up, he can get crazy pretty fast. And in this, it's like he's playing this larger than life character from another dimension. He doesn't have any really reality to dial this into. And so he gets to play it in like a little bit of a sort of like goofy, silly way, but he still plays it pretty straightforward. And unlike a lot of action films and action stars of the 80s, I don't really recall him having sort of like the zippy one-liners that a lot of other action stars did around this time. So like this movie is not cut from the cloth of that 80s action style. And framing it in the 80s juxtaposed with like future space opera, but also like sword wielding classic adventure sword and sorcery movies. It really sort of it doesn't give him much to latch onto, but he's still a really fun presence in the movie. And I don't like when I think of other movies, like when I think of Val Kilmer in Willow, I'm not really like, oh my God, Val Kilmer's like so fun in this movie. It's like I don't dislike him at all, but I never think of him having fun in the way that Dolph Lundgren is having fun in this movie. And that could just be because I watched this last night and it's much fresher in my mind than Willow is. And Val Kilmer historically has a stronger comedic background in his body of work by the time he's doing Willow than Dolph Lundgren has at the time that he's doing this. But he really is an interesting guy. And the fact that he even got considered for this movie is kind of weird. Like, I don't know how you would arrive at Dolph Lundgren, like a Swedish guy. Like, sure, he's tall and blonde, but you could bleach anybody's hair blonde. And if you're going to ADR the voice out anyway, you were never really relying on somebody to be a good actor. So you just wanted his physicality, which, hey, he brings that in spades. Like, he does almost all his own stunts in this movie. And there's a couple scenes where he's just like shoving guys. And I'm like, damn, he's like very physically strong. And there's like a fight sequence, I think is late in the movie. And they're all in the throne room. There's all the robots everywhere. And it's sort of just like a skirmish has broken out. I don't think he has his sword at the time, but he just like picks a dude up and just like throws him. And it's like, this isn't edited. This isn't cut. He physically just lifted another man onto his shoulders and like threw him across the room. So his physicality and his presence in this movie really went a long way in like projecting the idea of He-Man being this larger than life, sort of like demigod character, almost like Thor a little bit, where he's got the enchanted item and he's super strong and he's near indestructible. So I started to think of him in that sense, in that like this version that we're seeing of him is almost like a Thor character. So yeah, he really brought it for this.
Yeah, I think that he serves as a great part of the team. He's a champion that everybody is rallying behind, but he doesn't have to carry the movie. And it's a good thing, too, because I don't think he'd be able to.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what I know about this guy in this movie. He was attached to the movie before the director was attached to the movie.
Oh, wow.
And so that was part of why the director went after Frank Langella, because he wanted somebody that he could really count on who could bring it from a Shakespearean kind of an angle. And really started to focus the movie to even really be more like Skeletor's movie, and everybody's trying to foil Skeletor.
Yeah.
And He-Man's the champion of that team, but he is a part of the team. You know, we never really feel like it's He-Man's movie. It's just called Masters of the Universe, not He-Man and the Masters of the Universe.
A good point.
And what's interesting is that in Lundgren's contract, he had it that he was allowed to redo the dub if they found it unsatisfactory. So he, from the beginning, had wanted to do his own voice and his own dubbing, but it was an executive at Mattel. And understand, they were fronting almost all the money at this point in real dollars. Some executive at Mattel was like, this guy's terrible. We can't understand a fucking word he's saying. We have to get another actor to do the dubbing. And that was when they reviewed the contract and they saw that he was entitled to do another pass at it. And it was sort of like he was able to then do it good enough, you might say. And I don't know. I mean, I think it works fine, but again, I don't have an attachment to how he sounded in the cartoons, and I imagine he was much more articulate in the cartoons. but he looks he looks perfect. Like, and this was the 80s. So, you had that Conan the Barbarian kind of muscle bound, hero sort of a caricature that he's stepping into, Golden Axe from the video game world.
Oh, yeah.
Deathstalker from the very, very low budget. What were I can't remember if those were Corman movies or Richard Band or some other damn thing. But, that kind of very muscle bound. We're showing lots of skin, lots of hair, big swords. There's a style. And that's absolutely what we're getting with Dolph Lundgren as He-Man. I think we got away from it for a while. Now we don't really have too many of those in movies now. You've got, your wrestlers turned actors like Batista, like The Rock, but that's about where it starts to peter out. Whereas in 80s, it was a dime a dozen. If you were going to be a leading male action star, you had to be at least semi-ripped.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it's probably why Hulk Hogan had like an acting career at all, stemming from his wrestling prowess. Because, I mean, he went on to do, I think it was Mr. Nanny. He did the one with Christopher Lloyd. I can never remember the name of it, but he's an alien, Suburban Commando. And, he did No Holds Barred, Santa with Muscles. So it's like Hulk Hogan had an entire acting career just because he was like Hulk Hogan, but he's never really a good actor in any of them, but he's always got the 24-inch pythons, brother. So he's always bringing the muscles to the table. And yeah, that's kind of like petered out, where even guys like John Cena, Rock, Batista, especially Batista, he's started to skew much, much further away from being just like the brawny henchman kind of character. And John Cena, for the most part, has taken on like comedy roles, where I think The Rock is maybe the last kind of actor that adheres to that, where his characters are sort of like, he's like, oh, I'm doing Moana 2. And then it's like, this is a voice acting role. And he's like in the gym 10 hours a day, doing squats and curls. It's like, you're not even on camera for this. uh, but yeah, like he's very much into like the physicality. And then we've seen the turn of like, the jokes were going around the internet of, I forgot who it was cast, but somebody for the new Jurassic World movie was like training for Jurassic World. It's like, what's he going to do? Punch the dinosaurs? And it's like, we don't need that kind of character in the same way, or there's not the same fascination with it. But at the time that this came out, like Dolph Lundgren is the epitome of that. And like you mentioned, pairing him with Frank Langella was such a smart choice. And in watching this and having recently watched Street Fighter, I couldn't help but draw comparisons to like bringing in a guy like Raul Julia as the villain in Street Fighter, and Frank Langella in this having like this big sort of Shakespearean character buried behind like a very cartoonish villain, but still playing it very straight in this world. And Frank Langella also took this role because his kids were into He-Man, similar to Raul Julia in Street Fighter doing the role for his kids. So to see that not only they can take the role for those reasons, but that they can then be like the one sort of anchor point for the whole movie. Because I think it's like, you could buy into the goofiness of Man-at-Arms and Leela and Gwildor and He-Man and have it just be like the goofy adventure movie. But if you don't sort of buy into Skeletor, I think the movie struggles a lot more without a compelling villain there. And that's something that, I feel Street Fighter struggles from more than this movie. Not because Julia's worse, but because he's so good, it makes everybody else look pretty bad in comparison. Where Frank Langella, at least because he's buried behind the mask, is sort of like limited to the character that we see, versus like, hey, he's gonna turn into a human at the end, right? And then we're gonna get, oh, now this is what he would be if he were on the same level as He-Man, kind of thing. Because it's like, I didn't really remember the end, and I was like, what does he want ultimately? Does he just want skin? Does he want ultimate power? And it turns out that he just wants like ultimate cosmic power. The skin, not so much. But yeah, Frank Langella really, I can't speak highly enough about him. I mean, he's so good in everything he does. I don't think this is any exception. And in a world where you're playing you're playing a skeleton who's obsessed with cosmic power to still be able to like sit on the throne and play this as if it's like King Lear or something is pretty impressive.
Well, it's great because it is a very human weakness, his weakness of pride. Even when they get the cosmic key, he's not satisfied because he wants to break He-Man. He wants to break He-Man and in so doing, break the spirit of the people of Eternia. I'm going to break your champion and then you'll really have to bow down to me because that's what really matters to him. And that's something right out of a Shakespeare king or, kind of a history play or what have you. He has some of these epic fucking lines. Like when he says, "Return with me to Eternia as my slave and save their miserable lives, or perish with them on this primitive and tasteless planet." And that whole glow up speech where, because he's so epic and operatic, he's got to have a costume change. And so, while he's getting all gold and he's getting all hyped up with his power, he fucking screams out, "I am more than man, more than life. I am a god." That's so epic. And man, Frank Langella just sells it. Like, it doesn't seem silly. It just seems awesome and a little scary. And like, you understand why all these underlings would serve this guy because he's charismatic and he's fucking terrifying.
Yeah, I mean that it goes a long way when being an evil leader. And you're speaking of these line readings, and one of my favorite is close to the end, but he's got like the sorceress lady encapsulated in his energy field or whatever, and he's speaking to her, and he says, "Madness. I demand of destitution, shame, and loneliness of scorn. It is my destiny. It is my right. Nothing will deter me from it." And it's like this is this huge proclamation here at the end as he's about to like achieve maximum power. And I think what I really love in this scene is what she says to him is that men who crave power look back over the mistakes of their lives, pile them all together, and call it destiny. And I was like, wow, this movie like is really hitting on some interesting like traditional themes that we've seen throughout the ages and sort of I don't know if that's like, intentionally masking it with what we'll call like brawny fun in that, it's a lot of sword swinging and laser guns, but to include the kinds of dialogue and delivery that they did in this movie for particular characters tells me that the themes of He-Man that wanted to be communicated are like these big sweeping sort of classic universal themes. It's not just, oh, this guy in a cape and he's fighting a skeleton. It's bigger than that. Like this is whether it's Eternia or some other place in the universe, like this plight, this cycle of violence that we find ourselves in observing in this movie. Like this takes place like throughout human history over and over and over again. And if there was other galaxies out there, they're probably going through the same thing. And I like the way that is portrayed because the cosmic key is such a big part of the story in that, like, hey, wherever you go, this is kind of like inescapable and it all comes back to one central place. It's kind of poetic in that way.
Yeah, I would agree. And it's nice because this was a, feature-length toy commercial. It was mandated by the toy company, but it said to itself, well, okay, but while we're doing that, we'd like to say something. And if you look at the Transformers animated film, that actually has a lot to say about death and the grieving process that was way more insightful than people would have expected. And I mean, the one I mean, the one with Orson Welles, the animated Transformers movie from the 80s.
Or
and then, you've got this as another example. And also, let's not forget Barbie. Barbie had a lot to say about our current social paradigm and gender dynamics, sexual dynamics, patriarchy. But at the same time, not being ingenuous, it's just how things are. It was also a feature-length toy commercial mandated by a fucking toy company. And so it's interesting the way we sort of do have these. And I mean, this is a whole other discussion, but it's an interesting aspect of our society because we are at this stage of capitalism where things are so hyper product and consumerist driven that our art, not all of it, of course, but way more of it than ever before, is centered around a product. You've got the Flaming Cheetos movie. You've got the Uber movie. You've got the BlackBerry movie. You've got the Barbie movie, and just on and on and on. You've got the Pop-Tart movie. What the fuck, Jerry? What the fuck? Anywho, and it's this thing that we're really living in and grappling with right now. But there was a time when it wasn't so all the time, when it was usually a kid's toy thing, and the people making it had an opportunity to say something. And I really do think that this movie is one of those that punches a little higher and that does say something. I really love that little moment. It's just a little one, but the little moment when Kevin is feeling down on himself and it's like, well, you look at me like I'm some master musician. I'm just a fucking band geek. And there's a whole army we're talking about. I'm a fucking nobody. But Gwildor tells him, only one of you, Kevin. Only one of anybody. And, something to be, I watched a lot of Rugrats, something to be said for digging deep and saying, no, I have something to contribute. I have something that makes me special. And I'm not going to be the most special guy on the team, but I can contribute something to the team. And the team will be richer for that. And we can all embrace folks with their different things to contribute and celebrate that. So, it pushed all the buttons, for little sentimental, sensitive artist me.
Yeah, and I think that also points to something about this movie that we touched on a little bit earlier, in that it's a team up movie in the way that, like, He-Man is not, I mean, he's the hero, but he's not alone, and he's not carrying the movie on his own either. It's like every person in the group contributes a different thing, and it is this identity of a team. It's this sort of existential identity as well, that yes, Kevin, you're not He-Man, you're not like the hero, but that doesn't mean that you're worthless, and the story doesn't necessarily have to be about you in order for you to be a part of it. And I like that messaging, because it not only is it like a good message for kids to hear, where it's like, you're not the main character of life, right? Like, you're one of many other people. You need to learn to coexist. You need to learn that you have some skills that other people don't. And hey, when you find the other people that balance out all the skills that you don't have, you guys can conquer the greatest evil in the world. And it's like, okay, that's a little bit far-fetched at the end of the day, but it does tell kids that, like, hey, coexistence and cooperation are good, important things. And I think it's a message that's easy to get lost in something like this because of all the lasers and the explosions and like the B movie nature of it. But yeah, this movie definitely didn't have to say that, I don't think. And I feel like I should familiarize myself more with the He-Man cartoon that came before this to really understand like his place in the hierarchy of the storytelling. Because it could be that, like, hey, I go watch the cartoon and every episode is like, oh, it's like He-Man with a group of morons around him, and it's like, oh, good thing I'm fucking brawny and have this super powerful sword and I can't die. So it's like, just everybody follow me kind of thing. Because there are a lot of stories where like that is kind of the case, and not putting He-Man on that pedestal, I think, gave room for the rest of the story to breathe. And sure, it's goofy and it's a little like schlocky here and there, but you have two pretty prominent, well, three technically, and maybe four female characters, depending on like, was it Quarg, the snake person? Uh, I don't know, like, just genderless, but yeah, like Tila is a main character, Evelyn's a main character, Julie's a main character in this story, and they all have motivations, they all have arcs, they all have stories that we sort of want to see fulfilled. And even in a movie that's only, I don't know, hour 40 something, we get enough sort of character background and fulfillment from each of these characters at a time where like female action stars were just kind of coming around again. I mean, like, yeah, Conan was around this time, so you got like Grace Jones, right? She's in the second one. Linda Hamilton in Terminator is like a couple of years before this. Sigourney Weaver in Aliens is right around this time as well. So to see like sort of like a female forward, not just like action hero, but you get all the spectrum. You get the evil one, whose name is literally Evelyn. You get Tila, who's like the warrior princess, or like kind of like a Wonder Woman character. And then Julie's just like a regular, girl, like regular small town girl. But it's like, oh, her parents died. And so she's got like this horrible trauma lingering over her that she needs to resolve. And that plays a huge role in what happens in the story. So, like, really fleshed out characters in a story that is, like you said, essentially an hour 45-minute commercial for He-Man toys.
Well, it's got that Star Wars, Indiana Jones special sauce where you do have a lead champion, but it is a team effort and everybody is contributing to the overall quest. And, it gets very Return of the Jedi there in the throne room. And of course, the ending
Yeah.
is just completely insane because, Skeletor didn't pay the light bill. And and everything got a little topsy turvy there for their final battle. I also just want to throw this one in when he says, "Tell me about the loneliness of good, He-Man." He goes on to say, "Is it the same as the loneliness of evil?" And honestly, I think the line is better if you just leave that part out. Just taunt him with the fact that you're good and that's why you failed. It's just like in Spaceballs when he says, "Now you see that evil will always triumph because good is dumb."
Yeah, it that's why, like, I had to ask myself, like, the character motivations for Skeletor, like, because, like, what does he really want? Like, is he just so lonely that his plan is to, like, basically force everyone into obedience so that he has friends? And if he really just had some friends before he got to this point, like, he wouldn't be as evil? Because, like you said, like, that line delivery could be construed as a taunt, but the way that it comes across to me is like he's actually curious, and maybe that's just like Langella putting his spin on it. And I know that he was involved in sort of like writing some of his character lines, so I'm not sure if that was one of them that he changed or that he wrote himself. But it is like it sort of frames Skeletor as this lonely character that is really like doing all of these things. All this motivation is coming from like this sort of relatable place, and it's just he's not handling it well. And then he sees a character like He-Man who's got friends. Like, these people are volunteering to fight with him, to risk death with him, where Skeletor has to like rule with power and with fear. And I think so it's like a jealousy of He-Man. And that's why I was like, does he really just want skin so that he can be normal and have friends? And ultimately, like, maybe he really does want just to have some flesh and look like a normal person, but then he would have to probably give up a lot of his weirdo friends that he has. But they all bow down to him. It was such a curious quartet, right? He called them, and even the line.
And then he killed one of them just to make a point.
Yeah, the one that doesn't even talk, it just looks scared the whole time. It's like he didn't fail, but I do like that Karg sort of chases them around barking orders like he's the leader of them when they're out in
So
public. And poor
So
Beastman, it's like
good.
he's bleeding from the mouth like the entire movie.
He's just leaking. He's constantly leaking and he wants so much to please. He wants to be a good boy. I love Beastman. He got such a good look to him. And Blade, I think, was like the sword choreographer master
Yeah.
guy on set or something. So like he did a lot of training with Dolph Lundgren so that the sword fighting looked at least passable. God love them, they did what they could. Because the thing of it is that the sword does have to look a certain way. You can't just give him any old sword, and his costume does have to look a certain way. It can't just be any old costume. And it's hard to do legit sword fighting over and over again for camera like you have to when you have those constraints. And then put in the budgetary constraints of this whole thing, and you see how it snowballs, and this sort of thing can become very difficult. So I've got a lot of sympathy for what they had to do to make this fighting and this look as good as it can. And I actually have a lot of appreciation for how good it does look when when you stack up all those considerations.
Yeah, Anthony DeLongis, he was the sword fight coordinator. He also played Blade. He also played Skeletor briefly for the final sword fight because Frank Langella was not in the costume there towards the end for the final battle. And in reading about what he went through as Blade and that this costume he was wearing was like 50 pounds, he struggled a lot to move and had to convince them to like cut the arms off of it so that it could breathe. But he was quoted saying that like he was so sweaty at the end of like shooting day that when he would take his boots off, like sweat would just like pour out of the boots because this suit was so heavy. And he said they cut it from steel pipes. So they didn't just like get chainmail, right? They made custom chainmail out of pre-existing steel pipes. So it was way heavier than it probably needed to be. And him having to like try to move in that is crazy. And like he's got a whole character backstory too that isn't like brought to the table. And like, you know, his eye was taken in a fight with He-Man, which is why he's like obsessed with fighting He-Man and why he's kind of like Skeletor's number 2, maybe because he is, you know, the evil equivalent of He-Man in that way. So yeah, really interesting backstories. And like the trivia section for this movie is extensive. A lot of it I couldn't pull questions from, but some of it I could. So how do you feel about doing some trivia?
I'm game. Let's rock and roll. I have the power.
Time for trivia
of knowledge.
All right. Well, since the last time you were on the show, we've updated things a little bit, and that the trivia didn't used to matter, right? It was just for fun, and it's still for fun. But for each question you get right, there is now a wheel of destiny that is built into the show. So for each question you get right, you're going to get an extra spin of the wheel, and we're going to answer some fun bonus questions later in the show. So no pressure. But okay, so
I'm game. I'm game. Let's do it.
All right. Question 1. The Skeletor mask went on to gain new life being featured on which television franchise? Give you a hint.
Swamp Thing.
It was not Swamp Thing. It's actually a franchise that you're quite a big fan of, if I'm not mistaken. Star Trek.
What? Oh, shoot. Does it say how it was used on Star Trek?
Yeah, so it was featured in Next Generation and Deep Space Nine as the face of a particular skulled alien that is involved in some of the holodeck fights. So I don't know if this went on to be like used over and over and over again, but the amount of connective tissue between this movie and Star Trek is shocking, to be honest. I mean, look, there's like Dolph Lundgren and Van Damme are friends. They've done a bunch of movies together. I'm not surprised to see all that. But Frank Langella has made a series of appearances on Star Trek. Robert Duncan McNeil, who played Kevin, he first guest starred on Next Generation and then got cast on Voyager. Chelsea Field is married to Scott Bakula, who's on Enterprise. And then Gwyn Guilford, who plays Miss Winston, who is Courtney Cox's mom in the movie, that's Chris Pine's birth mother. And he went on to be Captain Kirk.
Snap. I never knew that. That's fun. Oh, my goodness.
I was shocked. I was like, I didn't expect nearly that much.
It's crazy, you know. You find Trek in the craziest of places, and it multiplies like bunny rabbits. Frank Langella's work on Deep Space Nine is fantastic. He's real good on that show.
Yeah, I mean, he's good in everything, so I wouldn't be surprised. It's like I've seen some Deep Space Nine. I've seen mostly I was Next Generation. I watched like the original movies, the Shatner movies. And I didn't really watch that show. And then maybe a little bit of Voyager. And then it was like, wow, there's a lot of Star Trek shows coming out. And it was like, I think I was just so attached to the characters on Next Generation that once it moved on and like none of them were on the show, I'm like, like, can I really get in? Do I have time and room in my life for another crew, another Enterprise? And I'm like, I don't know. I think I'm like a Picard loyalist.
DS9's a lot of fun because you get some connective tissue to TNG. You get Chief O'Brien and Worf really coming into their own as much more fleshed out characters. And if I could be a little Trekkie nerd for a sec, I'd recommend Deep Space Nine to you. It's so fantastic. It's really good.
Yeah, that was the one that came directly off the heels of Next Generation, right? It was like they were concurrent for maybe a year or two.
That's right.
Yeah, I remember it a little.
Do you remember Q from Next Generation?
Oh yeah.
There's it's sort of a thing they do in one of the very first episodes of Deep Space Nine, where he shows up to the station and starts fucking around with the commander there, Cisco, and Cisco punches him in the face, and he falls down and he goes, "Picard never hit me," and he stepped right into camera and he goes, "Do I look like Jean-Luc Picard?" And it was kind of like the show fucking putting its foot down, saying like, we got some different shit for y'all right now.
Well, all right,
it's pretty great. Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, that sounds good. Okay. Well, I'll have to reconsider jumping into that, but we'll move on to question 2 for now. Mattel only released 3 action figures based on the movie at the time of its release. What are those 3 characters?
He-Man, Skeletor, Gwildor.
Well, you got 1. You'd be surprised to learn that He-Man and Skeletor were not part of the original release of toys. It was Gwildor, Blade,
Beastman, Blade,
Sauron was the other one.
Sauron was the one he kills, isn't it?
Yes, the one who doesn't talk.
A weird reptile dude who doesn't do shit except get killed. Oh my god. I'm sorry, I was talking over you. So it was Sauron, Blade, and Gwildor.
Yes, correct.
That is ridiculous. Oh, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think the only thing we actually see from Sauron is like a close-up of his like throat as he's breathing. Like, because he's nervous and they want to show us that. And he's like, I don't know if it's a hard swallow or something. But yeah, he never speaks. And then he gets scapegoated by the rest of the Curious Quartet as being like the reason that they failed. And it's like, just kill the guy who doesn't talk so we can get him out of here.
It was that guy. He did it. Yeah. I mean, he looks good. I'll give it up for the makeup and everything. It looks good. But yeah, it's such a silly moment. It's yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, you got 1, so I'll give you that one. And let's see.
Shucks.
So
what a dude.
We'll get you points so we can spin the wheel. And let's see. Okay, so the third question. This was not the first He-Man big screen release. Do you know what was?
I do not.
It was He-Man and She-Ra, The Secret of the Sword. It was an animated film based on the cartoon that was released in theaters 2 years prior to Masters of the Universe.
Oh, snap. Because that's the thing. This is such an opposite situation from when I came on to talk about Swamp Thing, where I came with all this like extra knowledge and baggage about Swamp Thing. On this one, it's the direct opposite. I don't know shit for dicks about He-Man outside of this movie. Like, there were 2 modern day animated series, one all about She-Ra and one all about He-Man that like just happened. I think I saw 1 episode of that She-Ra show and I said, this is really good. And then I didn't watch any more of it. And I never saw any of the He-Man show. I think Kevin Smith was working on it. I don't know. Like, there's all this He-Man shit that I don't know nothing about. I just know this movie.
I think there's a comic book that is either just finished its run or is still currently active that is, I believe, a Masters of the Universe comic. And I see it at the store and I'm like, I wasn't big enough into He-Man to get it. I considered like, maybe let me get the first issue and see how it goes. And I just didn't pull the trigger because I got enough books under my belt already. But it's interesting to see like the swing back that He-Man is back in fashion almost 30 years later. And, hey, good for He-Man. It's time to shine again. He's got the power.
And when you watch this movie, it makes you feel like you have the power too.
It's the power of friendship.
It's the power of time travel, dimension hopping, and saving your parents from a plane crash.
Yeah, how far
Very
back
specific.
How far back did they go? She like woke up in her bedroom, and I was like, wait a second. So like, are they in high school at the time this is happening? Are they like just out of high school? Did they go back years in the past?
I think the characters are supposed to be just out of high school, and I don't know. I just always assumed that the plane crash that killed her parents was very recent.
Gotcha.
So it always seemed to me like the time jump was less than a year, and the 2 of them are the only ones who remember. So whatever. Although it's got me all in my Doc Brown head where it's like, that's created a new tangent timeline that split off in this direction. And Who knows what crazy shit's gonna happen? I would have loved to have seen a part two if they definitely got Frank Langella and they definitely got Dolph Lundgren back. I would have had a blast seeing a part two for this.
Yeah, like it was interesting that Dolph Lundgren had apparently turned down the sequel opportunity while they were filming this. So they kind of already had it in mind that they wanted to work on a sequel, and he just didn't have a good time on this shoot and wasn't interested in doing it again. And he said, I don't remember exactly like when in the timeline he said it, but he felt like dumb playing He-Man and just like didn't like the character. But then around 2010, when he's promoting Expendables, they asked him again about it. And he kind of like walked it back and said that, look, if there's a new movie, I would be open to coming back as He-Man or in some sort of cameo role. So I'm curious if like he just needed enough distance from it to see it for what it was. Cause like you're trying to break through in Hollywood. The director and the production company are like, we don't even want you talking in this movie. Just put on your fucking underwear and your thigh high boots and your cape and get out there and swing the sword around and
Like your Rocky Horror or some shit.
So I could understand him having a bad time, but I think maybe like this movie endearing itself to people over the years has softened his position on that. And if there was a new movie attached, I would not be upset to see him return. Like I don't know that he could be He-Man at this point in his life unless it's going to be like son of He-Man kind of thing and he's passing the torch, which I mean, whatever. But I would hope that he could see that like the fans of this movie really love it and would want to do it for them, for their sake.
Oh, that would be a delight. That'd be so cute and fun. But yeah, it would have to be. It would have to be like He-Man is old now and he's passing it on to the new thing, or he has to be talked into helping, or I don't know, maybe he loses something really terrible at the beginning. Yeah, there's ways of doing this. And
Yeah.
I'm frankly surprised. I guess it's not that there hasn't been any He-Man. So I shouldn't even say that I'm surprised they haven't gotten there yet because they're doing other He-Man shit. And if it's working, it's working. If they want to tap the live action well, they certainly can. They've had some, and I say they as if it's like some giant cabal of streaming services or something. But, you know, streaming networks and their original content have had a lot of crashes and burns from existing IP, you know, some one season and then dead things. So if they can get it right, that'd be cool as hell. I'd be down. I'd watch that shit. Because, yeah, Did I mention already? And I'm sorry that I've forgotten. It's one of those days. Did I mention already that his hair caught on fire during the making of this?
No.
Because that happened. Like he really gave a lot of himself to this, production. So I can understand if right after the fact he said, yeah, I'm not interested. Or in the middle of it, he said, yeah, maybe not. Thanks.
Yeah,
but
they lit me on fire. I'll pass.
Yeah, they lit me on fire without asking first. I'm gonna pass. But yeah, just everybody in this, Tila, Man at Arms, I find them so charming. I think they all work really well, and they just kind of buttress the whole thing because there is that tone where they are on a serious quest, but it's not a mission. It's a quest. There's time for levity. There's time for chicken. There's time for big sunglasses and pink Cadillacs. And the movie maintains that tone all the way through. And I mean, I think it's why so many also rans have been forgotten and fallen into, what we can call the dustbin of cinema history. But this one is still one that gets talked about. We're still chatting about it. Because that's the thing. When we were yammering about movies to do, I didn't look at any list. This was in the back of my mind going, oh, I have wanted to do this with Nick forever. We just keep doing other movies instead. I've got to float it because I don't even know if he's done it yet. Because, I just have all this affection for this movie that for the first time ever, I will admit is not really good, but that's part of why it's fun. There are just so many odd choices throughout and they commit. Everybody is committing. And that's part of why I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree. And I don't know what it is. Maybe it's something in the water, but yeah, our friends over at Cinema Shit Show are going to be doing a Masters of the Universe episode as well. So it just seems like maybe the soil is rich and fertile for new He-Man content to come out. All the people that grew up with this movie are now adults that want to see something like this get a chance at getting remade versus, maybe sixth or seventh entries in other franchises. Like, hey, take a stab at actually remaking something and giving it an actual chance here, because this was handicapped by a lot of production issues. So maybe if you were able to streamline a lot of that, you could get a version of this movie that would be considered like a good movie or a more respectable movie. We'll put it that way.
A more respectable movie, but I drawing a line in the sand here. I want just as much skin, maybe more so. I want just as many costume changes for Skeletor, maybe more so. And I mean, if you can't get Meg Foster back to do like an Evil Lynn grandma cameo thing, then I want to get Mia Goth in there to play Evil Lynn, because she can bring the crazy.
Yeah,
that girl's crazy on two legs, and I love her.
Well, as I was watching this movie, I couldn't help but think, I grew up with Thundercats, so that was like sort of my He-Man. You've got an evil, it's like in this case, it's not a skeleton, it's a mummy, and he's also a cat or something, but I couldn't help myself from thinking, like, I want to see a live action Thundercats movie made in this like physical style, but taking itself fairly seriously, because I think that could work. Because sure, we could do an animated Thundercats movie. We could do like a CG, 3D animated Thundercats movie. But I would love to see the effort and time and attention put into things like costume and set building and hair and makeup design for something like that. You could really, I think, have a lot of fun making this kind of movie now. You just need the right kind of filmmaker who sort of grew up watching this stuff, and this was like their formative film experience. And then you could get that person on board with making this kind of movie now. And, it probably would cost a lot of money, but Thundercats have always been popular, so maybe it makes its money back. But if not, then it gets to flop, and I get to talk about it like in 10 years on this show.
It would be fabulous, right? Take Masters of the Universe meets Cats, but good.
Yes.
I just watched the Tubi original Slay last night,
Okay.
which is about a siege of vampires attacking a bar in Texas that is populated by drag queens who it's a bit of a Blues Brothers situation. They get there and they're like, wait a minute, the gig is here? What the fuck? And we're here anyway, we got to do the gig. And then there's vampires. It's really good. Like, if you enjoy a good horror comedy siege slasher, it's really well done, much more than I thought it was going to be. And I think that there's something to be said for Skeletor being a bit of a drag queen. He's got his big, fabulous, shining outfit. It's heavy as fuck. It's totally impractical, but he's going to look good while he makes He-Man beg for mercy, right? And that's what I think is going to be part of the spectacular of this Thundercats project that you're envisioning. It's going to have great hair, great makeup. It's going to have great choreography and attitude and tone. There's got to be operatic style, man. And a huge, huge, huge percentage off the back end that's just going to me for my consulting. Are you with me, bro?
Yeah, I'm with you.
I just want you to realize your dreams. That's my only job here, is to facilitate your success. Also, that huge percentage on the back end.
Well, I mean, as long as the movie makes money, I'll be happy to give you a percent. But we'll cross that bridge after we get financing up front. But yeah, I think, one of the only other like interesting trivia, well, not one of the only other ones, but one of the primary ones was that, when you and I had sort of exchanged messages and you said you're happier than Pig Boy. So like Pig Boy is a character in the end of this movie, but this was a character that was also like given away during the sweepstakes. they wanted to include like a grand prize for somebody that won the sweepstakes to be in the movie. And so this character Pig Boy was created and played by Richard Sponder. And they were, of course, like behind schedule, over budget, all these things. And he gets his role. He hands He-Man like a sword or a staff at the end of the movie, something like that. So it's not even like a big role, but there's a 2012 interview with him where he said that the night after filming, he was in agony because they had glued the prosthetics to his face and then they ripped the mask off and he was just like in horrid pain. So this guy wins a contest to be in He-Man. He has to wear prosthetic makeup and then he gets it shreked off his face. And his glowing memory of the movie was like, hey, I was in He-Man on also horrible pain after we were done filming.
He was also promised a scene with Skeletor because he was like Skeletor's, staff bearer, and they were supposed to have an actual scene, but it just all got cut because everything was getting cut at that point in the process. Another Star Trek connection. There was supposed to be a big fight that occurred in Eternia, but they couldn't afford it, so they just shot at Vasquez Rocks. Vasquez Rocks also used very prominently in on the Star Trek TV show, the original series, when Kirk fights the Gorn. No, I won't kill him. And then Bill and Ted Bogus Journey used it again. Vasquez Rocks for all your awesome fighting needs.
Yeah, it's been featured in quite a few productions, actually. I think for its like just iconic look, obviously, but yeah, it's in like Agua Dulce area, something like that.
There were 3 different occasions that the director said the payroll did not arrive and the crew was gonna leave. And he basically had to make a speech promising them that if they would just give it to the end of the day, he would find their money. And then if he didn't, they could then go home and not show up tomorrow. And he always found a way to rustle up the cash to keep shit going.
Wow.
This thing was completely insane. It was so on its last legs. This one other quote that really shocked me from William Stout, the production designer. He said that canon, that at this time, it was very uncommon for a movie to have at this time, it was very uncommon for a movie studio to have a whole bunch of movies in production all at once. In 87, according to this guy, WB had the most at 6. They had 6 movies in production all at the same time. And that was a lot. Canon had 84 films in production while they were making Masters of the Universe.
Yeah, that's quite a few. And I know it's like they shot all over the place. And I know I think they shot some of this or built out the sets for the sequel that was planned to be shot in Charlotte, where De Laurentiis' studio was. But yeah, you're stretched pretty thin as a production company if you have that many active shoots going on. So it's not necessarily a surprise. They're like, oh, we're a little bit low on cash because one production ran over budget. Oh, this one did too. And now you're just, oh God, we're underwater at this point. So let's beg Mattel for some money.
Yeah, and beg they did. It's oh my God, it's so ridiculous. Mattel, it's so funny to hear the story of all of this because it feels like Mattel got in going like, hey, this is great. They're going to pay half. We're going to pay half. That makes sense. It'll be a big commercial for our great toy, which is booming and doing great in sales. And then it's like 6 months later. Yeah, we're going to need some more money from you, Mattel. Yeah, we don't know where that last check went, buddy. Anyway, yeah, He-Man, big effects, a lot of stuff. It's like Star Wars. We're going to need some more money, Mattel. Sorry. What's that? What the fuck? He-Man toys aren't selling anymore? Why aren't they selling? The fuck do you mean shifting market, you assholes? We're in the middle of making a movie.
I wonder if that has something to do with them choosing to not release like the He-Man toy at the time and focus on other characters in the movie, as they were like, hey, these are new characters that you can buy. So it's not, hey, we're going to do He-Man again, because there was a He-Man toy that was released as like part of the movie universe, but it came, I think, a year later, like He-Man Laser Action or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like, they were just floundering at that point. It's just what can we do? What can we do? What can we do? And sadly nothing. Not even a post-credit sting. Not even a post-credit sting could save this one. It was a bummer.
Yeah.
It was a bummer. I was there. I was 4 months old when this came out, and I saw it and I said to myself, "Oh, I liked it, but the critics aren't going to care for this one bit. We're not going to see a sequel out of this lemon." I would have tweeted it out, but we didn't have that back then.
No. But that is a great segue to take us to Critics Corner, where we really get to see all the nasty things that the critics said back in 1987 and maybe since then. But for the most part, Metascore uses reviews from the day and age. So we have an overall Metascore of 35. So not the lowest that's ever been done on this show, but we do start in the red, as we almost always do. And we've got 320s on the board between Empire, IGN, and Variety. So I'll let you pick which one you want to go with.
Let's see what IGN has to say. I got a soft spot for acronyms.
Yeah, so I'm guessing that IGN was not around in 1987, or maybe they were as just a physical magazine. That's possible, but that seemed to come a little bit later. But anyway, this uncredited review from IGN says, "I'm not going to lie to you here. This movie is a steaming pile of you-know-what. The acting is horrendous. The story is the most cookie-cutter clone of every movie after Star Wars as you can get, and the effects are downright laughable. Even an easy effect such as a laser blast looks bad here." So it's not the most eloquent teardown of this movie, but honestly, I never stopped to think that the effects look bad. Like, okay, maybe they're a little dated by the time 87 rolls around, but as far as like being a Star Wars clone, like, okay, duh, like that's obvious.
Well, this whole thing, I mean, like I should have considered this before just going, "Ooh, IGN, why not?" This critique is drippingly modern. There's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is the kind of thing somebody says right now on Letterboxd who's never seen the movie before. I don't know. Whatever. The effects for a canon film in 87,
Yeah.
I think are mostly quite good, quite charming. There are some that really stand out as not great, like when Superman is flying around. I mean, Jesus, on the disc, right? This is the same group that was making Superman 4: The Quest for Peace. I mean, you
Yeah.
want to talk about some effects that didn't even look good in the 80s when it came out. So, like, the laser whip, I think, looks great. I think the costumes and the laser guns look pretty goddamn sweet. I think that I think that Gwildor's makeup and that Skeletor's makeup and all of that looks fantastic. I love the matte paintings, but I think that that's really charming. I love a good matte painting. It's just when I grew up. So yeah, whatever, man. Yeah, like what's Empire got to say?
All right, we'll go with another one. Here's Empire. This is William Thomas. Also gave it a 20. Said the first film to be based on a line of toys. This might not be the last, but it takes something awful to replace it as the worst. So, I mean, you can't be like, hey, this is the first movie of its kind. It's the worst, because it's by default also the best. If it's the only one, it is both the best and the worst. And I don't think it is probably the worst movie to be made about a line of toys, especially with the benefit of an additional like 30 years of history, almost 40 years now. So yeah, Empire didn't like it either, but that's why we're hanging out in the 20s.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, it's not like he was gonna say 20s. Actually quite good.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like the criticism about the visual effects is like, yeah, okay, the actual, like, we'll call it VFX, were not spectacular, but they're not completely out of line with other movies from this timeline either. The practical effects, however, are very good, and I think do more than enough to make up for the shoddy lasers.
The fire looks great in this movie. As I understand it, they accidentally kind of, sort of, almost burned down that entire band set where the big fire happens when the first attack on Courtney Cox happens.
Ah.
Yeah, like that fire got out of control in real life. And it's so funny because I remember watching that and I took note of like, damn, this fire, this is like Carrie, baby. What's happening here? And so it was fun to find that in the research that it was like, oh yeah, no, that fire was a lot. We caught that on film. Yes, we did.
Good thing. I mean, it's like a Dr. Nick moment where it's like inflammable means flammable. And it just gets totally carried away. But let's climb the leaderboard here. And let's see. We've got the Washington Post with a 30. This is Rita Kempley. Says little kids at play have come up with craftier plots, better characterization, and conceivably more spectacular effects, provided their mothers let them play with matches. So this is another person just like ragging on the effects, but even if you're going to, you've got to acknowledge that your little analogy here about matches doesn't line up because the fire is real and abundant. So it doesn't quite hold up. I get that it's like, hey, you think this is lowbrow and stupid and goofy, and I mean it is all of those things, but don't knock the fire. Don't knock the actual practical effects. They did well.
And, you know, a dispassionate read of this review, it's clearly endorsing and encouraging young people to play with matches. Pretty irresponsible. What's her name? Katie? Is it Katie?
Rita Kempley.
Rita. Pretty irresponsible, Rita.
He's like, yeah, your kids could make a better movie if you let them play with fire. It's not the messaging you want out there for a He-Man movie. Okay, let's see.
Is it?
All right, let's split the difference. We've got a 40, a 60, two 50s. So let's go for one of the 50s. And we've got the New York Times uncredited, TV Guide magazine uncredited as well. Cowards.
Cowards, the lot of them.
You want the Times or TV Guide?
Let's take a look at the TV Guide.
TV Guide magazine gave it a 50. There are some decent special effects, but overall, it's about what you'd expect from a movie inspired by a line of toys. Yeah, okay, perfect. Yeah, like at least you acknowledge that the thing that they did well. But yes, it is a movie inspired by a line of toys. It's going to have a fairly low ceiling in that regard. So I feel like that's at least a practical review of this. And you give it, 5 out of 10. So just split the difference.
File that under tough but fair.
Okay, so
it's very tropey. It's very tropey. Everything happening here. It's a very hero's journey thing. Like everything we've referenced. Lord of the Rings, Indiana Jones, Star Wars trilogy. It all goes back to that tradition of hero's journey. It's very tropey. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all. I mean, that's the reason that we're watching it in the first place. So, yeah, it's not a negative in my book at all.
It's funny to me that like in these like very professional sections of journalism and film review, it so often did boil down to somebody going, well, the special effects are no good. Right. I don't like the special effects. Which when we're denigrating somebody who's like a really lazy critic online, that's what we would do. That's how we would characterize someone who's a real dopey online critic. I didn't like the effects. It's like, no, this is how it always was. Even when people had a byline in the New York Times. Excuse me, TV Guide magazine.
Yeah. Well, New York Times, they only gave it a sentence that said, if you like the toy, you'll love the movie. Okay. But they gave it a 50, but good endorsement still. Film Threat, which gave it a 60, also fair. One sentence. It's a good looking movie overall. It is. But like, yeah, I guess there's not like a ton to say, but we do close it out. We've got 2 63s on the board, the Chicago Tribune and the Miami Herald. So who do you want to take us home?
Well, as a Chicagoan, I feel honor bound to go with the Chicago paper. So what do they got?
All right. Well, I figured that's why I mentioned Chicago first. And again, no byline on this, but it says everyone knows how the battles will turn out. It's what's between them that raises Masters of the Universe ever so slightly above the mediocre, and gave it a 63. So it's above mediocre, but I don't know if mediocre is like average in this world, but I guess being above mediocre is solid enough. And he gives it credit for, like, hey, even though it is tropey, even though it does all the things you'd expect, it's all the stuff in between that you don't expect that actually makes this movie stand out. And that I can get on board with.
And I recently watched Ratatouille, so I'm in that vibe of, hey, small victories. Look at that. We've got you got a critic who says, well, in the light of things, this film is quite good. You like the toy, you like the movie.
Yeah, and I mean that's the whole idea anyway. So that's not a bad review. It's not glowing, but it's not terrible, and I'll take it.
And it does. The details, the things in between really do raise it above the mediocre. And, it's why it has stood the test of time, as they say.
Yeah. And I mean, the last thing I have that actually is like a note that I wrote down was I said that this is about as good of an adaptation of a kid's like cartoon that you can possibly make it. And I stand by that. I mean, like, what are you really going to do better in this? Like, for an audience of 10-year-olds, like, realistically, what are you going to change that's really going to get it to the next level where all of these persnickety critics would be like, oh my God, the visual effects were stunning. And therefore, Dolph Lundgren and Frank Langella were also amazing because I wasn't bogged down focusing on that a fact that I didn't appreciate the way that that laser beam looks.
Yeah, Mortal Kombat 95 is going to borrow some of the swagger that this movie was
Yeah.
walking in confidently. Street Fighter is going to do the same thing. It's coming out of a similar tradition as Monster Squad. It's not exactly the same, but it's got that same scrappiness to it, where it's got a little bit of bite and a little bit of edge, but it really is for the whole family. And it's doing the absolute best it could possibly do with its budget and its scope in 86, 87 to make a live action He-Man movie. I mean, this flick, when you consider everything stacked against it, is kind of a miracle, which is a crazy thing to say, but I stand by it.
Yeah, I don't disagree, and I think I appreciate it that much more for those reasons because there's a lot of other versions of the timeline where like this movie never saw the light of day. So I'm glad that we live in the one where it got completed, even though they shut down filming 3 days before the finale and came back months later to then reshoot the finale once Goddard finally convinced somebody to give him enough money to shoot the end of the movie. So I'm glad that it exists, and I'm glad that we got to watch it and have fun with it.
Big same. Big same. I'm glad I got to come in and just get real slap happy wild about my love for this movie. Because it does. It comes from a purely emotional and nostalgia driven place.
Is there anything that you wanted to touch on before we move on to the next segment of the show?
Thank you for asking. Let me double check my notes. Just one more great thing about Frank Langella and the director speaking about him. He said he doesn't walk into a room, he enters a room. And that is what they needed for Skeletor. And it's yet another moment where I'm just enamored with this one really charismatic, kind of classically trained actor at the head of this completely wacky genre picture, who helps to just elevate everything because he cared enough to show up to play. And that's how I feel about Frank Langella in this movie.
Yeah, he doesn't sort of take it over serious, right? He understands the assignment. He's on board with it and he wants to do it for his kids. And it's like, you can't really find a more perfect storm for somebody to step into and actually like bring Skeletor to life. Okay, let's see. All right. Let's see. I'm gonna. All right. Let's spin the wheel that you earned bonus credit on. You got one question right, so you're going to get a bonus spin. But the first question that I always ask, and that I will continue to always ask first, is if you're going to give a gateway drug recommendation for He-Man, what movie are you putting in the chamber?
Army of Darkness.
Ooh, I like that one.
Because whereas in He-Man, you've got a crazy sort of universe being thrown into the modern day setting, and our modern day characters having to deal with that. In Army of Darkness, you've got a modern day character getting thrown back in time into what feels to him like an alternate world in, the medieval world of the living dead. And there's a lot of irreverent comedy. There's a lot of high style. And I think they would be it would be a great double feature, in addition to being a gateway drug.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that. I didn't even think of it. There's a lot of movies that popped into my head as I was watching this. I mean, obviously, like Flash Gordon, I feel is a sort of a relative of this movie, but I think Neverending Story is the one that like popped out to me more because Neverending Story also sort of like takes place in another universe, but also concurrently exists with somebody in our present time being part of the story. And a lot of like the practical set piecing is very similar. Costume design ideas, I think, pretty close in DNA, and they're like big sweeping adventure stories as well. So yeah, I think I like that one. But I was also like, I couldn't help thinking of Return to Oz too, because of sort of like the dark practical effects of that movie. And I'm gonna be talking to Dara, who was on for Drop Dead Fred. We're gonna do Return to Oz for some movie in this summer slate somewhere. So I'm excited, and maybe I just jumped the gun a little bit and was like, hey, well, yeah, it's just like Return to Oz, because of course I'm gonna be talking about that movie. But I think Neverending Story for me would be the one that'd be like, I think a lot more people saw Neverending Story, especially when we were kids. And a lot of the thematic energy is there. Neverending Story maybe a little bit more traumatizing in ways, a little bit darker and more self-serious. But yeah, I think there's a lot that you could if you could line these two up and see a lot of similarities if you just watch them back to back.
Neverending Story is such a perfect answer for that. Yeah. No, it's a great one. And yeah, that movie's fantastic. I remember when I did that movie on my show, it took like 2 episodes.
Wow.
Partly because we were both really emotionally connected to this movie, so we kind of got off on these very deep tangents that I didn't want to cut, but also because we were both drinking heavily during the episode. So it all just took way longer than it needed to. But I was like, I'm not cutting this, damn it. This is honest. This is real.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to go and seek that episode out after we get done recording here. But but I mean, that does sound like a lot of fun. I think a triple feature would like start with Army of Darkness, do He-Man in the middle, do Neverending Story at the end, and I think you've got yourself like a really busy, fun day of zany adventures. And I think you'll start to see the connective tissue as you watch them all back to back, and maybe it'll elevate your appreciation for He-Man in the process. So I think that's a good jumping off point to get into the next section. But yeah, I think now we spin that wheel to see what you do with the bonus point. I actually have the wheel constructed now, and it's in the pink and blue colors that you cannot see, but it looks like it's branded for the show now, so I'm happy. And let's see where it takes us. Okay. If a new version of this movie was made today, who would you want to see at the helm as the director?
I guess the easiest answer is James Gunn.
I thought the same thing when I was thinking of this question earlier.
Yeah, it's this one of those, I'm sure you can relate to this, where you have a knee jerk and you go, well, that feels like the obvious answer. Let me see if I can probe and think of one that's like a quote unquote better answer or less conventional answer. But like, I wouldn't even want to go with Taika Waititi because I feel like he's played out on stuff like this. I feel like he's not interested in these kinds of stories, and he would do a really phone it in kind of a job. James Gunn is always able to do these group dynamics on a quest in a larger than life world that is able to take itself seriously, but not too seriously. He is just so fucking good at that. And as he's gotten older, he's gotten better at doing it. And he's not lost connection with, the cultural zeitgeist. He's stayed in touch. And so it doesn't feel like some old dated messaging. It always feels like a community and a dialogue and a world that you can relate to in the here and now. So yeah, it's, I'm over here saying to myself, oh, I want to have a different answer than James Gunn, but I think that's probably the best answer.
Yeah, I mean, that was who popped to mind for me as well when I was initially like putting the questions on the wheel and just like thinking through some of the potential answers. And I think, in addition to everything you said, like his experience with colorful action films that utilize humor, utilize a lot of like interesting practical set design, like I think he would be the best fit for it. Um, if I really was like pushed to think of somebody else, I think maybe Adam Wingard, the guy who just did the new Godzilla Kong New Empire movie, understands the essence of like having color and fun and like taking characters like Godzilla and Kong and doing something with them that's just like enjoyable and like action packed. Like I think Godzilla suplexes King Kong at one point in the movie, like a WWE vertical suplex. So if that guy could make a He-Man movie, I think he would at least be able to like have fun doing so and make sure that we have fun as the audience watching it. So I like that. But I think Gunn is the correct answer. If there is a correct answer, he would make maybe the best version of a He-Man movie that could exist right now.
Yeah, if it was like 1999 or 2000, I would say Luc Besson.
Oh
But
yeah.
we're just
oh boy, that would be
we
wild.
are living in different times, and that's just nope.
Oh, all right. Well, that was fun. I mean, the wheel worked. It actually spun. We got through that. And since you're here and you're always game for new things, I want to try something new again with you if you're up for it.
Always.
All
What do we
right.
got?
We're gonna do a little rapid fire word association.
Word association.
Oh man, are we about to unveil what a pervert I am in real life? All right,
We'll find
unfiltered.
out.
Let's go. Let's get there.
Okay. So first, we're gonna go Dolph Lundgren,
Apollo,
Frank Langella,
Nixon,
Courtney Cox,
France,
Gwildor,
Will don't,
Cosmic Key,
Cosmic cunt.
and Gary Goddard.
Oh my Goddard.
Perfect.
Also,
man,
this is
thanks.
an actual question. Is he related to Drew Goddard?
I don't know. Let me look at his bio right here and we'll see. Mini bio. It doesn't say any family listed here, so I don't know. Maybe, but probably not, because usually that's somewhere in there. Oh, and his birthday is the day after mine. What do you know? It's crazy that
Hey, how do you like that?
he only made this one movie too. I mean, he made some other, I think, like TV movies after this, and did some special work on the
Interesting.
Jurassic Park ride. But like, this was one and done. First movie, last movie.
Interesting. Like, similar to Dolph Lundgren. He was like, "Yeah, I'm good. I don't want to do that again."
I just
Good.
made a masterpiece. Why would I ever want to come back and try my hand again when Masters of the Universe is perfect?
Go out on top. Just you got nowhere to go but down after you struck gold like Masters of the
All
Universe.
right. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure the complications of this shoot were so overwhelming at some point that it's like, okay, maybe we just go ahead and hang him up, because he went on to still, yeah, he produced the pre-show video for Jurassic Park The Ride, directed it, Poseidon's Fury video, so like straight to TV video. So he got to make at least another movie, and then Hershey's really big 3D show. So I don't know if that's just like more schlocking of corporate products. And then Depot's Undersea 3D Wonder Show, which I don't know if that's like part of SeaWorld or something, but it's 9 minutes long and it seems like it would be at home in SeaWorld. So who knows? But it's crazy to think that the guy that made this movie never got another crack at making a feature film.
That honestly bums me out because
Me too.
there was a great understanding of just, tone and nuts and bolts storytelling through visuals.
Yeah.
I don't
Disappointing.
know. Excuse me. It would have been nice to have seen what this guy could have done with a little bit more time and just a little more flexibility.
Yeah, because he wasn't even. I don't think he was attached for the sequel that was in production either, which I think they had cast already and written a script for. So they were pretty far down the pipeline, but Goddard was not in the discussion to helm that film either. So kind of weird.
Uh, I can't imagine the business decisions of Canon Films in the late 80s. I mean, they had to have been above reproach. So I'm not going to question those choices now. Certainly not.
Oh, well, that brings us to the end of the show, man. Sad that it's over, but I had a great time, and I want to give you the opportunity to talk about what you're working on your show. I know you mentioned it a little bit before. You just had a new Rage for Cage episode that I saw, I think was last week. And you're doing some Batman stuff. And the new Batman animated series is coming, so that's going to be exciting too. I don't know if you're gonna jump right into that and cover it for the show, but yeah, what are you working on, man?
My current episode of I Am Batman, which covers Under the Red Hood, which is a really outstanding animated feature that tells the Jason Todd story. And last week, as you said, we had our Rage for Cage, where we stacked up Bringing Out the Dead versus Honeymoon in Vegas. Honeymoon in Vegas, a very underseen early 90s rom-com that more people need to check out with James Caan and Sarah Jessica Parker. And of course, Nicolas Cage. And next week, we'll be debuting part one of our two-part Tarantino Jamborino on True Romance, a huge favorite of mine. All of that at my show, Movies for Days, non-pretentious, easy access movie chat podcast, which every Friday gives another deep dive into any movie from any decade with anybody's guess as to how we picked that fucking movie that week. I'm a member of the You Run Podcast Network, yourunpodcast.com. That's where you'll find all my episodes as well as all of our network member episodes. And it's just always a different deep dive into whatever movie we're doing that week. You can hear my show everywhere podcasts are heard. And Nick, you've been so good to come on my show a few times. We talked about Copland. Wait, did I just say a few times? You've been on to talk about Copland, and we've got an upcoming episode on Desperate Measures, but have you been on before that to do another episode?
I don't think so, unless I use the cosmic key to jump backwards in time to another dimension. But no, I think it was just Copland. And I was going to ask
see, I get so mixed up because I've been on your show a couple of times, and we chat in the film club so often. It feels like just come on in. The door's always open.
Yeah, it's just like going over to your buddy's house. But I was going to ask you, since we were just talking about how you pick your shows, like how do we arrive at Desperate Measures? I mean, I obviously am a big Michael Keaton fan. I've always liked this movie. I know I mentioned it on Twitter like maybe a year or two ago, but I don't think that's where you reached out to me from. So I'm just curious, like what brought Desperate Measures to the table?
At some point, you may have mentioned something, and it just clicked for me. Oh, somebody else likes this movie enough to just mention it offhand, and I kind of gripped onto it. It could have come up during our Copland discussion or our Copland prep. I know that I randomly saw it on Tubi ages ago, and it was the first time I'd seen it in a long time, and I might have said that to you in our off recording conversation. And you might have expressed a similar enjoyment of that movie. And so I just said, oh my God, somebody else likes that movie. Come on my show. It's difficult for me to exactly chart it. I mean, certainly the marijuana has a part to play in that, but also just how much I do on this show. There's so much prep work and editing and then promoting, and you're always doing multiple things at once. So I wish I could just blame the drugs because it would be very on brand, but that's not really accurate. I'm juggling a lot of shit. So yeah, I don't remember, man, but I was so pumped because this was, as a young guy, the first time Michael Keaton was bad for me, and he's so good at being bad. And I didn't know that.
Bad.
And it's a very dad movie, it's like The Fugitive. It's very much one of those kinds of flicks. But I think Michael Keaton, Andy Garcia, everybody around it works. It's kind of a for now, it's an arguably low stakes kind of action thriller because it's really just about this one guy's son. It's almost just that. And this one prisoner who's causing problems. It's, when you consider how high stakes everything has become in the modern day action arena, it almost feels low stakes by comparison. But because of that, you're able to dig into the details, the environments, and the characters. And so, yeah, it's a movie that most people don't even remember happened. So when you expressed even a little bit of interest, I just clamped onto it like a freaking lapdog, man. Like,
yeah, for some reason, I've always been drawn to Keaton as a villain. He is a very good villain. I'm sure I'll probably talk a little bit more about it. I might even watch it in preparation to talk about Desperate Measures, but Pacific Heights is one that also I grew up with Keaton being a super creepy villain. And I've always loved that era in his career. And I was like, Batman, of course, like was the catalyst for all of this stuff where I was just like, I'll just watch him in anything because he's great. But I'm really looking forward to that. And I mean, we'll be recording on that in about a week. So stay tuned.
It's crazy the way time flies. Yeah. Come back again, friends. This cocktail is going to keep on getting poured.
Well, I appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. I'm glad we could find a time that worked for both of us. And thank you, sir. Well, have a good rest of your evening.
You as well. Thanks again for having me. Take care, brother.
Pleasure. You too.
Thanks to Newman for coming on the show. It's always a pleasure to sit down and talk movies with him. And if you don't believe me, you can check out his show, Movies for Days. Whether it's raging for Cage in the cage match, or having fun at the Tarantino Jamborino, or one of many different subseries he has on his show, he's got you covered. And of course, you can find him on X at Movies for the number Days with a Z, because he's cool. And of course, thank you to everyone who took the time to listen to this episode. I know you have a lot of choices when it comes to podcasts, and I appreciate you spending your time with us. I hope you enjoyed the show, and if you do, please consider leaving a rating on your podcast platform of choice and telling a friend about it. And the support page is now live over at ko-fi.com. That's ko-fi.com/badmovieswelove. I'd love to hear from you, so if you have a bad movie you love or would like to be a guest on the show, you can contact me at badmovieswelove@theshice.com or at badmovieswelove on Twitter and Instagram. And that's love with an LUV on the socials. And until next time, take care, be well, and have fun however you get your movies.